A new tax bill has officially passed. Called the One Big Beautiful Bill, it is the largest tax cut in American history. And while most headlines are focused on politics, we're going to be focused today on what it means for your retirement. The choices that you make in the next few years could have a significant impact on how much you keep and how much goes to Uncle Sam.
It's easy to get lost on the way to retirement. Things like taxes, improper planning, and excessive market risk can all lead you astray from your goal of a successful and happy retirement. That's where Liz Whittaberry comes in. She's a holistic financial advisor and the founder of Best Path Advisors, and she can help guide you to a better financial path. This is Retire on Your Best Path with Liz Whittaberry.
Welcome into Retire on Your Best Path with Liz Whittaberry and myself to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill, some key points we want to run down this week with Liz, who is founder and financial advisor at Best Path Advisors. So thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever app you enjoy using, Apple, Spotify, so on and so forth. You can also find Liz's YouTube channel as well, and all sorts of good information at bestpathadvisors.com. That's bestpathadvisors.com. And Liz, let's talk about the bill this week. How you doing? You doing all right?
I am doing great. How are you?
Hanging in there, doing pretty good. You and I were chatting. It's a little toasty outside. That's fully in the summer, but that's all right. It's to be expected. And, speaking of summer, they decided to pass this. They got this all kind of pushed through and very theatrically, right, signed it on July 4th, yes. Which, is, again, very kind of theatrical. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and to your point earlier, you said, let's just not worry about the politics because everybody wants to kind of, frame it one way or frame it another. Let's just talk about the general impact, especially to our listener base and your client base. And I guess we'll start with the big piece, which is really just the marginal tax brackets get extended, right? The permanent yes. language comes in. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit. But that's the main takeaway, I think.
Yeah, and permanent means it does not expire. It doesn't mean that it will never change. Right, and that's a big difference.
Permanent in Washington is totally different than any place else, right?
Yeah, it just means this is the law for now, and until we write a new law, then this is what's in place. So we always have to remember that, and I think that's very important when we're thinking about our planning. The fact that these marginal tax brackets were extended, that means we've got the lower tax brackets that we've been talking about. We were talking about the fact that they were going to expire at the end of 2025. They now don't expire, which means they should be in place at least through 2028. Beyond that, we don't know. And so right now I'm telling people, let's just keep doing what we've been doing under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Let's continue to do that forward-looking tax planning, make use of these current low tax brackets while we can, use it to rebalance our tax buckets or make Roth contributions instead of putting money into the tax-deferred traditional IRA and 401k. Do those things that don't cost as much to do because we've got the lower tax brackets and put ourselves in a better position in case tax rates do go up in the future. Our country can't run on low tax brackets forever.
Right, exactly. Great point. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the 24, then happy news, you're probably staying in the 24, right, for the next couple of years, right, versus kicking it to, it would have gone to about, 28, I think?
28.
Yeah.
So you've got 4% difference, and let's make good use of that.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you guys also just kind of runway to plan, right? So we know for a few more years, and unlike the TCJA the first time, would they pass it in December at the end of the month? And then it was like, yep, this starts in a week, where at least we got a few months here runway for the extension of this thing starting, obviously going into 26. So the second piece was obviously kind of right alongside that was the standard deduction, which, I think I just read, Liz, 9 out of 10 people have been basically using the standard deduction now since the TCJA went in because it's so high that it's just easier, which, made filing easier for everybody.
It does, and it truly benefits retirees and pre-retirees who would be the people most likely to listen to this podcast. It's not as beneficial to a family that has a lot of kids because under the old way, before TCJA, you had a low standard deduction, and then you had a personal exemption for each person. So if you had a big family, that could really add up. But for our retirees, pre-retirees, having this much larger standard deduction is very, very beneficial. And most of these people that I'm working with don't have a mortgage. Their out-of-pocket health expense is low because I either have good health insurance because they're still at work or they are on Medicare, so they don't have a lot of out-of-pocket health expense. They do make some charitable donations, but they're not beating that standard deduction. And it just makes it easy to use the standard deduction.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm telling people, again, is let's keep doing what we've been doing under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And that is, let's double up on our itemized deductions in 1 year and then take that big standard deduction in the next year and really get some bang for your buck. Just shift when you're paying that property tax, when you're paying the charitable gifts, shift those things around so that you can double up on your standard deduction in 1 year. Maybe you've got standard deduction of 25,000. You can double that up and get 50,000. And itemized deduction of 25,000, double that and get 50,000. And then the next year, take that standard deduction of 31,500.
Yeah, it's pretty massive, and that's a great tip right there as well. And so that being extended, and of course it's kind of been indexed, and it goes up each year since the TCJA was put in. So that's been another strong piece. And we're going to circle back around to some more deduction chats in just a second. But the top three, I wanted to run through those, and then we'll kind of get into what I guess they considered some of the smaller ones. But the third one here is this is probably where the dealing goes on, right? They start these bills, and then this person says we want this, and these few people say we want that, and that's kind of where they bounce back and forth and make these little political deals that they do. And this was to the SALT cap change. And these probably was lobbied for, I'm sure, by the states that have really high state and local taxes, right? So talk just about the SALT cap.
It's been a big point of contention ever since TCJA was passed. Anybody living in those states that had high property tax rates, they have wanted this limit to be rolled back. And they've come up with a lot of different ways to try to work around it. States have implemented some new laws to help people make use of it. Here in Texas, we don't get impacted by that. We don't have high income tax, property tax rates here in the state of Texas. And there are other states that have low property tax rates that it hasn't been a big deal for.
Right, but like Jersey, New York, California, so on and so forth, yeah.
It's been a huge deal. So this new change is just good for 2025 through 2028. It is not a permanent increase in the state and local tax deduction or limit, I should say. And it's going to be 40,000 this year. So it's been 10,000 a year. It's now going to be 40,000 this year. It's going to revert back to that 10,000 level in 2029. So if you're in a high tax state, you've got a great benefit for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Here in Texas now, it plays into the strategy I just talked about because it gives us more ability to double up and get a bigger itemized deduction in 1 year. Any other low tax state could look at that strategy as well. That would give you more room for maximizing that itemized deduction in the years that you're going to do that. So it's unfortunate that it's one of these things that's here and then not here because that sure does make it difficult for people to appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, it definitely. And like I said, there's always lobbying back and forth to get some things. So that was kind of sort of the compromise. And, speaking of compromise, the next one was a big piece as well. So it's the senior citizen deduction. So we had that weird email that went out from Social Security talking about the elimination of taxes. Obviously, it got kind of distorted. That was one of the campaign conversations, but they wound up finding a sort of middle ground, right, which is what they always do.
Yeah, they were unable to get the number of votes required in the Senate to make Social Security tax-free.
Right.
And that was a big talk, a big conversation piece. And so the solution that they came up with is, again, for the next 4 years, 2025 through 2028, we're going to give seniors what we're calling an enhanced senior deduction.
It's pretty helpful, right? This is a pretty nice little piece as well, though. I think it's a good compromise.
Yes. And so it's $6,000 a person. You get to take that whether you itemize or don't itemize. So it applies to a broad range of people. You just have to be 65 and above and be, not earning more than the phase out range, which we'll get to in a minute. But when you're talking about a single filer, they're going to be able to have their standard deduction of $15,750. They're over 65, so they get the extra $2,000 that we already had in law, and then they get this other $6,000 on top of that. So that's a pretty big deduction. A married couple filing jointly is going to get 31,500 plus that 3,200 for both being over 65,
Plus 12
and
grand, right?
then another 12,000, 6,000 each.
It's pretty hefty.
So that's
Yeah.
a nice amount of additional deduction. It's going to start phasing out for a single filer if they have modified adjusted gross income of 75,000 or more, and for a married filing jointly if they have modified adjusted gross income of 150,000 or more. And so
So you
what
still
I am
get
going to be
so
talking.
I'm sorry,
Go
let
ahead.
me I want to ask you a question. So you still get it, right? But it kind of starts to
Yeah.
roll its way down the higher your income
Yes.
limit. Is that how that works?
Yeah, they take 6% of, each amount over that limit that I just gave, and at
Okay.
100,000 over, it's totally phased out.
Yeah,
So
like 250,000 for a married couple, you're out.
yes,
I got you.
you're
Okay.
totally phased out of it. And that can play into Roth conversions because if you're 65 and not working and you're in that gap period where we have low tax brackets, then we're looking at doing Roth conversions.
Yeah.
And then we have to start thinking about which makes the most sense. And it's going to depend on your situation. Does it make more sense to try to stay under this limit where you get this some or all of this enhanced senior deduction? Or does it make sense to just consider that part of your tax cost and go ahead and do those Roth conversions so that you're in a better place down the road when you have to start taking required minimum distributions, which is the tax savvy thing for you to do in your situation?
Gotcha. Well, thanks for explaining that because I know it gets a little confusing for folks. And again, this is why a strategy is so important, right? Because now you can, as you've highlighted, you can do a couple different things, look at some different avenues on how to maximize stuff. And yeah, that was actually next on my list, which was Roth opportunities, which you kind of just touched on. But I think it does help you guys with that planning conversation, right? Because if converting over time was on the horizon or was something that you were talking about with your financial professional, and we did have these things expire at the end of this year, then that would have kind of limited that, right? But now you've got this runway again to maybe Roth over time for the next couple of years.
Right, right. And when you're thinking about a couple with 150,000, they're in the 22% tax bracket. That's enhancing your deduction will save them $1,320. Is it worth it to save that money to not do Roth conversions and pay a whole bunch more later? For some people, it won't be. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we do have to keep looking at it.
Okay. Charitable giving, any thoughts there?
Well, let me back up on Roth conversions for just a minute,
Sure.
and just make the comment that we want to always make sure that we're paying the lowest tax possible, and that's what we're doing when we're analyzing a Roth conversion. We're not doing a Roth conversion just because they're all over the place and everybody says how cool they are. No, we want to make sure that we are paying tax at the lowest dollar that you have to pay it at. Now, we have to guess at what future rates are going to be. We have to do some modeling at what growth you're going to have, what required minimum distributions you're going to have. But to the best of our ability, we want to make sure that you pay the least you have to get that money back out of the IRA or the 401k and, keep more for yourself.
Yeah.
Keep more in your pocket. And that's what we want to do.
Okay. And so is there any other, I guess, pieces with that charitable thing? Was there something about what was
Charitable
it?
giving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was it like an extra above the line deduction or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So on the charitable giving, we remember when we had right after COVID, we could take, I think it was $300 the first year, and then they doubled it and it was $600 the next year. And you could deduct that above the line, meaning it's subtracted from your income, from your adjusted gross income above the line. And you could take it whether you itemized or didn't itemize. Everybody could take it.
Gotcha.
They have now made that provision permanent and increased that amount so that it's $1,000 for a single filer, $2,000 for married filing jointly. It has to be in cash. You've got to write a check to the charity or, credit card or something, but it has to be a cash, not stock, not a QCD. And if you do that, then you get to reduce that adjusted gross income, which then flows into a lot of other things on your tax return. So that's a very good thing. Now, if you're doing QCDs, then you'll need to do a little bit of analysis to determine what's the best approach for you.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, it was so many pieces, right? So many things. And we're trying to touch on the big ticket items here and how that will play into maybe strategizing for your retirement. What else is of note that struck you, Liz?
Well, I think that people need to know that there's a lot in it. So be paying attention to news that comes along. Some of the things are they've expanded the use of the 529 plans. That could be very helpful to families. They have made auto loan interest deductible again. They have kept the limits on your mortgage interest deduction, but they have added back the ability to deduct the mortgage premium. They have eliminated tax on tips and overtime up to limits. So people that are working and get that, that's not most of the people that I'm talking to, but maybe your kids
or
are in that
grandkids. Yeah.
situation. Yeah. And so that would be helpful for them. And some increases to child tax credits. It's huge. It's like 900 to 1,000 pages long, depending on whose count you're listening to, but it's a big bill.
Yeah, you could go to the congressional website. There's a summary. I think that's around 30 or 35 pages. If you're into, want to read a little bit more on that. There's a lot of little stuff in there, right? And so, to your point about the car, also I saw that they're phasing out the EV credit. So if you're thinking about getting a new car and you're getting into retirement, and maybe an electric car was on the radar. I think that's in September, so you may want to double check that so that if you want that credit, before that expires.
This is also the last year to get the credits for doing the energy efficient things to your home. Those were going to last through 2032, and so that is going away this year.
Gotcha. Okay. Any final thoughts or takeaways, Liz? Overall, as a planner, do you like most of this stuff? Is this helpful?
It is helpful to the people that I'm working with because we've got these lower tax brackets, the higher standard deduction, a little more flexibility on some charitable giving. So it is definitely beneficial. My closing thought would be it could be tempting to put taxes on the back burner since this one big, beautiful bill made these lower tax brackets and bigger standard deductions permanent. But that would be a mistake because we have to look at this as an opportunity where we get a few more years of good tax planning done before a future Congress could change it again. So we don't want to let it go to waste. We want to put it to use for ourselves, for our families, be in the best position possible in the future. And with a lot of these new provisions expiring in 2028, you need to be sure and start planning this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably when we'll probably see a new tax code come in if we have a new administration, right? 2029, we'll probably see some changes somewhere around there. So yeah, to your point, to help you retire on your best path, be as efficient as possible because we're not getting out of debt anytime soon. So at some point in the future, tax rates increases are still probably pretty likely. So being effective and efficient now is key, and this helps you do that. So as always, if you got some questions, need some help in strategizing and getting this planned out, reach out to Liz before you take any action. Find her online at bestpathadvisors.com. That's bestpathadvisors.com. And don't forget again to check out the website for other tips and tools and resources and the YouTube channel and all that good stuff. So lots of good things there at the good stuff. Liz, thanks for hanging out as always and breaking it down. Always learn a lot, and it was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next time right here on Retire on Your Best Path with Liz Whittaberry from Best Path Advisors.
The preceding program is sponsored by Best Path Advisors, which is solely responsible for its content. Securities offered through J.W. Cole Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through J.W. Cole Advisors. Best Path Advisors, J.W. Cole Financial, and J.W. Cole Advisors are unaffiliated entities. The opinions expressed by Liz Whittaberry should not be construed as specific tax, legal, or investment advice, nor as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Neither J.W. Cole Financial nor its representatives provide legal, tax, or accounting advice. Persons who provide such advice do so in a capacity other than as a registered representative of J.W. Cole. Investing is subject to risks, including the loss of principal. Due to volatility within the markets mentioned, opinions are subject to change without notice. Information is based on sources believed to be reliable, however, their accuracy or completeness cannot be guaranteed.